Want to learn my best kept secret to using your lard? 2 words: sourdough doughnuts. Take your donuts to the next level and forget vegetable oils. Lard is the secret ingredient that will give your donuts that perfect melt in your mouth texture. Stick around to see how this old-fashioned fat transforms your donuts from good to legendary. Welcome back to another episode of Pasture Pioneers. I think it's safe to say that everyone loves a good donut. A couple of years ago, my mother-in-law made the first sourdough donuts I had ever tasted, and now it's quite frankly disappointing to try anything else. In the wintertime, it's become a rhythm of ours to make these at least once in January. It cheers everyone's mood without indulging in lots of refined sugar. I wish I could credit the recipe maker, but the copy that was given to me was a screenshot from an Instagram story that didn't have the poster's information. I made a recipe and a half, so I used 3 cups of active sourdough starter. You can use discard for this recipe. It will have a stronger sourdough flavor. You will need to use some instant yeast though, probably about 1 to 2 teaspoons. I fry my donuts in lard, yes, but I also like to use lard in the dough as well. I find lard makes your baked or fried goods soft, and the lard taste isn't overpowering at all. Lard is actually really good for you. It's a saturated fat which can support healthy cholesterol levels, and when the pig is raised in fresh air and sunshine like ours are, it's laden with good old vitamin D. Lard is also a great choice for donut making because of its high smoke point. This recipe is refined sugar-free, using honey instead of sugar for the dough, and for a batch and a half I used 6 tablespoons. The normal recipe uses 4 tablespoons, and I'll put the full recipe in the description. This yielded us about 37 donuts and 37 donut holes and a few spare donut holes from scraps. For special treats like this, I like to use half white whole wheat flour and half all-purpose unbleached flour. It produces a delectable texture and is super soft. Once your ingredients are fully mixed, allow the dough to rest for 30 minutes. Then add your salt. Once the dough is pulling away from the sides of the mixer, you need to test it with your fingers and see how much dough sticks to them. My first test, my fingers were coated with dough, so I continued to add flour in small increments. A few minutes of mixing later, when I tried again, my fingers came back mostly clean. It can be hard to gauge how much flour to add because if you don't add enough and it's too sticky, it's about impossible to make donuts. But too much flour and your donuts are going to turn out dry. As it turned out, this dough was a shade on the sticky side for my preference when I went to cut them, but the final result was delicious. So once your dough is mixed, I move it to a greased bowl and ferment on the counter for about 4 hours, and then I move it to the fridge overnight. In the morning, when it's convenient, I remove it and roll it out. Lightly flour a surface and roll out your dough to about 1/2 inch thickness. I do flour my rolling pin if the dough is particularly sticky. I don't have a fancy donut cutter, but I do have lots of canning bands. I take a clean, regular mouth band and use that to cut out my donuts. Make sure to clean your band promptly afterward. I press firmly and kind of give it a wiggle to help the dough cut through. Then I place donuts onto parchment to rise. Once they're all cut, I'll come back through and remove the holes. You can just make a hole with your fingers if you don't want the fuss of frying donut holes, but I have little mouths that love little donuts. I let these donuts rise for a couple hours and let the dough come to room temperature. And while I'm waiting, it's helpful to get some things ready ahead of frying the donuts, such as getting your cooling racks ready and even making your glaze or topping of choice. I prefer to use my cast iron Dutch oven to heat my lard in. I'm careful to not overfill it with lard, but also have enough in there to keep the donuts from sitting on the bottom. You want to heat your lard to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. I like to look for color more than I watch the clock. Once you see golden brown on one side of your donut, I like to wait a few more seconds before I turn it over, and then I look for an even color all the way around before I remove the donut. Something I love about these donuts is that we can freeze them. That's why I'm making such a large batch. When reheated in the oven or microwave, these donuts will taste perfectly fresh. After they're removed, I allow them to cool for a few minutes before I glaze them. I make my own powdered sugar using a coffee grinder, and then I slowly add half and half milk or cream until it's about the thickness I'm looking for. So I also make some donuts with a cinnamon sugar coating, which is best applied when the donuts are still warm. Thanks for watching. I hope this video has empowered you to go make some sourdough donuts with your rendered lard. Please like this video and leave a comment. This lets the algorithm know you found this enjoyable, and we'll see you next week.